Beleza, deixa eu só ver um negócio aqui. Ok, pode ir? We're doing offline podcast.
Okay.
Okay, so after I can bring the subtitles
Mm-hmm.
and make the properly translation.
Yes, yeah.
Tá, pode gravar já. Pode ir? Fala pessoal, sejam bem-vindos a mais um Nix Podcast. E hoje, meu amigo, o nosso convidado é internacional, hein? Diretamente dos Estados Unidos, lá da Califórnia, a gente traz um especialista em e-mail marketing. É o Austin que está aqui com a gente. Welcome, Austin, to our podcast.
Obrigado.
A gente vai falar inglês, pessoal, mas as legendas vão estar aqui embaixo. E o Austin é especialista em e-mails, amigo. Aqui no Brasil, e-mail não é uma coisa tão grande quanto os Estados Unidos, eu imagino, né? E ele é um especialista que tem trabalhado com isso há um tempo e vai falar um pouco sobre essa coisa de e-mails pra gente. So, Austin, how is like working only with emails? Are you doing only this?
Yes, I work only in email. I really enjoy it because in focusing only on email, I have built a big network of other people who work in email marketing. And I've been to many conferences over the years and have, follow a lot of newsletters. So I'm able to be really specialized just in one thing. And in the US, it's quite common, for a lot of companies to have a dedicated email marketer. Some of the bigger companies, like maybe like Airbnb or Uber, companies like that, they would have like an entire team of email marketers. They would have like an email marketing director and then, maybe like 5 employees. They might even have like for different departments, each one has their own email marketing team. So it's definitely a career in the US that you can do just totally specializing in email.
Oh, cool. What are the tools that you are using in the day-to-day basis to do with the emails campaign properly? Because in Brazil, a lot of guys are trying to do this, but they are using their Gmail.
Mm-hmm.
They copy and paste a lot of these emails on the CC and CCO space
Mm-hmm.
to reply everybody. What are the tools that you use to do this work?
Yeah, so the most important tool is an email marketing platform. So this would be like MailChimp is the most famous one,
MailChimp?
which is a good place to start if you're just getting into email marketing. So they have free plans available. They also have pretty affordable professional plans to get higher in volume and the complexity. There's other ones like Salesforce Marketing Cloud or ActiveCampaign, Constant Contact. Those are used typically by larger companies, and they give you a lot more options of what you can do. You can do automations. You could set up like a welcome series and say like for this, we want this email to go out when somebody subscribes on our website, and then the second email goes out 2 days later. And you can even add customization to say things like, if somebody opens this email, don't send them the next email, or things like that get very specific. So that's definitely the biggest tool that an email marketer is using most of their workday. Another tool is a tool like Litmus is the most famous one, a tool that allows you to look at the email across different devices. So I can then view my email, how it looks on like an iPhone X, or I can see on like an iPad or in Gmail, on Firefox browser, things like that to make sure it looks good across all of them. So that's a quite important tool because often if you design an email for the laptop, maybe it doesn't look very good on the mobile, or for certain devices it looks wrong. So that's a tool that's quite important also. And then a third tool you want to use is maybe a deliverability tool. So sometimes this is built into your email marketing platform and you can just access it easily. And sometimes you might buy this separately. But this tool allows you to monitor your deliverability and make sure that your emails are actually making it to people's inboxes. They're not be sent to the spam folder. You can see like the open rate for different clients. So you can see like for Gmail versus Yahoo versus Apple or any other ones. You can make sure there's not any red flags of like, oh, the open rate for Apple is 0% or it's 5% versus like 30% for the other ones. And you can quickly solve problems like that.
Oh, good. I was using the Brevo, formerly Sending Blue.
Oh, yes.
It's a good option.
Yeah, that's one of the newer ones, somewhat new compared to the other ones. Yeah, it's a quite popular one. I haven't used it myself, but I have some friends who have used it.
What are the tips that you can bring to us for the guys are trying to build a email marketing campaign, starting from the 0 point? What are the tips that you can bring to us for start email campaigns?
Yeah, I would say first to just look for the key points in your marketing journey. So maybe if you're a company that's selling clothes, you might look at maybe an important moment is when they make their first purchase would be one key moment. Maybe another key moment would be when they walk into the store. Another moment might be 1 month after their first purchase. If you have data showing that they often make the second purchase 1 month later, maybe it'd be they typically buy around a certain holiday season. That's an important point. And then once you have identified these various points in time, then you can set up email campaigns to address these moments. So maybe you would have a welcome series is always a good place to start. That's where you get your email list going, get people informed about who you are, and start to sell them on your brand. Why is your brand the one they should keep buying from? And then you might go into that after 1 month of first purchase email and build a campaign there, and use the data you have to decide when should the emails be sent exactly, what products should be featured in them, even what price point of product should be featured and all of that. So yeah, I think it really just comes down to looking at your sales patterns and then seeing where email can fit into what you already know about your audience.
Experience that I had a long time ago. I got a client that he wants to start email campaigns. So he had a huge legit database, show a lot of emails. So when I start to do this email campaigns, I think I was sending with MailChimp. He take for example, it was 3,000 emails. He only sent you 200. So the rest will wait. The response that the 200 give to these emails will allow MailChimp to continue the campaign or not. I think in my experience, I think MailChimp is not looking for everyone to send emails. We got a huge problem with the spam, right? So how can these guys that are trying to do email campaigns from the start can be certain that these emails take their way and the people read them and not they are not in a blacklist, they are not in the spam mailbox? How can we do this without being flagged as spam?
Yeah, so an important thing when you're starting an email marketing program is to do a warming up period. So this is something that usually your email service provider can help you with. So if you maybe you buy Active Campaign or Sendinblue, and then typically you can ask them for help doing this. But basically what you're going to do is gradually start sending emails out. So you might send your first email out to 10% of your audience, and then maybe 15% for the second email. And then over a few weeks, you eventually would start sending the email to the entire list. So that's for getting started. And then once you have started, once your email program has been around for maybe 6 months or a year or for many years, that's when it's really important to start filtering out the inactive contacts. So if you have contacts who have not opened an email for over 1 year, that's a good contact to not be sending to, because then it's lowering your open rate. And it's telling your email clients like Gmail or Apple that people don't want to read your email. So then it's more likely to go into spam. It's more likely to not be delivered at all to people. So typically a company that has been doing email marketing for a while would have logic set up to say only send to people who have opened the email in the last year, last 6 months. It might depend on the company. So that's quite an important one for deliverability.
Okay. Let's just one moment. Segurei, Karine, rapidinho. I will bring a specific question, then I want you to know about it. Okay, vamos lá. Austin, what advice would you give to someone who uses personalized emails for B2B prospecting? They are not the guys who are sending bulk emails, right? They are sending only 2 or 3 emails per day for a client. But they use the personalized email, right? this can do by this in small scaling of the email marketing. What tips can you bring to this kind of person? That is me, as well.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, so that gives you a good opportunity. If you have such small volume, you actually can personalize it very well, because if you're sending out to like a huge audience, typically your data is going to be more limited, and you might only have like first name, maybe like city they live in, or the products they bought before. But when you're doing on very small scale like that, then you really want to think about it from the person's perspective. Like, let's say you're emailing a potential client to try to get them to start doing marketing campaigns with you. You'd want to think about, like, why do they need marketing campaigns? Like, what is what's the hole in their business right now? What are the problems I can solve for them? And then just directly address all of that right away. And then I think another thing is then to like do research into these people. So if you're emailing just a couple people, that gives you time to then look at their company's website and see, what makes them different from other companies, and just do a lot around that. So that's what comes to mind for now.
What have been the biggest surprise that you encounter working with emails? Perhaps a response for a major CEO on your email, or something that you think is curious experience with email marketing?
Yeah, so one thing that I luckily get to do a lot of in my email marketing is testing. So A/B testing is a really common thing for email marketing. It is used, of course, for websites and other tactics as well. But in email, it's really nice because you basically send like the exact same email out with one difference. So maybe like the color of the button is different, maybe the entire copy of the email is different, just something is different. And then you're able to compare and see which one did better. And you even can send maybe 10% of the email out, and then you can then determine the winner and then send the best version out to the rest of the 90% if your list is large enough. So anyway, I've had a lot of surprises through doing this type of testing. So one interesting one that maybe is specific to the American market, or maybe is relevant more places, is that we found that just a really plain text email often does better than a designed email.
Really?
So this is an email that's literally just, black and white, just words.
Not HTML.
Yeah, not HTML, and no images. And I think the theory behind this, that why people think this happens pretty often, is because people see it as being more like personal, of like, oh, this is just somebody emailing me, like we were just talking about. So yeah, that's been a major surprise, and it's much less work for an email marketer. So it's kind of a nice thing of like, okay, great. I don't have to take the time to have somebody design this email. I don't have to code the email, I can just send a plain text out. So there's that one. Another bigger surprise has been just how much like small things can make a difference, like the color of the email, like the image of the email and things like that. Like they often do really make a large difference. And then a third big surprise, I would say, has been with the length of emails. So I think it seems like I get surprised more and more with like the shorter the email is, the better it performs. And like even when it's like extremely short, and maybe that has to do with today people's attention spans are a lot shorter. And I think, I don't remember the exact number, but definitely if somebody looks at an email, they typically spend, probably less than 5 or 10 seconds looking at it, and then, move on to the next one. Yeah, so it's definitely like you want it to be as quick and short to the point. Like maybe you have like 5 messages in the email, so you're going to want to then cut that down and say, what are the 3 most important messages, and then take out the other 2. And then make sure your number 1 important message is like very prominent and very obvious.
Cool. How does your work integrate with CRM? For example, you get a positive response from a client, right? And you need to update this for the sales team to make the close or something.
Yeah, so that's there's platforms like HubSpot is the most famous example of a platform that does integrate your email marketing with the other aspects of your business, and it is a full CRM. So if you're in that type of situation, I'd recommend using one of the CRMs like HubSpot that does email marketing. So in that case, it's all in the same system, and you can have automation set up to make these updates. So you could, maybe like you even could do something very specific, like this person purchased a product in the store, not even related to email or the website, and then you can send them an email based on that. Or you could have something based on this person called customer service and talked to someone, and they get an email based on that. Or going the other way too, maybe like you have somebody who has opened like many emails in 1 week, and then that can be automatically flagged as somebody sales should call and talk to.
Cool. We gonna, I feel our time is up. Can I have just one more question?
A couple more.
What's your view on purchase? Blah, blah, blah. What's your view of these guys who buy email lists and sending massive bulk emails to a cold leads?
Yeah, it's just not a very smart technique, because then you're really going to make your reputation be quite bad. So if you have a list of people who have never heard of you, who don't expect to get an email from you, then they're quite likely to mark you as spam. And if, maybe like, even if only like 5% of the people you send it to mark your email as spam, that is quite a lot. That's much more than normally it'd be like, less than 1% of people would mark your email as spam. So that's going to flag to the email client like Gmail or Apple or whichever one it is to say like, oh, this email is spam. And then the next time you send an email, it will not make it to their inbox. It will go straight to the spam folder, or it won't make it to their inbox at all. So maybe it works for some people if you have just one email you want to send. But if you're just if you want to like build this audience and continue talking to them, it just isn't going to work, because pretty soon you're just going to be blacklisted. And then if you try to send an email out to a different audience, that won't be sent either, because now, because the client is associating you, like your reputation. They're not like only applying this to that one list you send. So basically all the lists you try to send in the future, even if they're a good list, are then not going to make it there. So it can have some pretty dire consequences.
This worked on the 90s, but not today. Not today.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the best case study that you ever seen or done with email campaigns?
The best case? Let's see. Yeah, I think one that I was quite happy with how it turned out was, so I was working for a flower delivery company, so you could order bouquets and send them to your loved ones. So one campaign we did that was quite cool was we found people who were the really high purchasers, like the people who like spent a lot of money, who ordered very often. And we made a special campaign just for them that was a new arrival campaign. So every time we had a new product come in, they would get a special email that kind of calls them out as being like one of our VIP customers. And then they would, get a discount to buy this new product. So that was a really nice campaign because it was quite successful. Like the engagement levels, like open rate, click rate, conversion rate were much higher than a normal campaign. And yeah, it's one of those examples of how like often in a business, maybe like 80% of your business comes from like 10 or 20% of your customers. So I think it's really important to find those like high value customers and then send something really specific to them. That's, think about like, oh, this is someone who obviously really likes our company. Like, so in our case, we thought about, okay, maybe they would like to know every time we have a new product and feel like, they have this, they're like the special one who gets to know before everybody else. So yeah, I think that worked out really well.
Okay. What's your view of the current digital marketing landscape right now in 2024?
A big question. Well, I would say I would advocate for, I think so I've been working in email marketing for about 10 years now. And I think ever since the beginning, people have been saying like email marketing is declining, email marketing is dying, there won't be email marketing in 10 years. I was fully told that 10 years ago. And yet in the US, that hasn't been the case. It's still like as dominant as it was 10 years ago, just because it's very cheap to send an email, and compared to social media where you have to pay for an ad, or for Google, you have to pay for an ad. It gets quite expensive to make one sale, whereas email, the sale comes almost for free for you once you have that email address. So yeah, I would say email marketing is still going strong. I think in the US, another big thing that's happening now is you're seeing kind of customers expecting personalization. So let's say like I am like a Nike customer and I buy Nike shoes all the time. I think the average person who gets emails from Nike now would expect them to see like shoes like the ones they bought before in the email. They wouldn't want to get an email of just a bunch of random Nike shoes. They would expect that email to be like set up to the things that they like. So it's not just about like first name personalization in the emails. It's now like the products have to be personalized. They even, some companies even do things like sending emails based on the weather. So like if you are a clothing company and there's like a big storm in part of the US, they might send like a lot of like cold weather clothing and products to this part of the country. And even like countdown clocks are pretty common. So maybe if you have a sale that's ending on like a Monday, Instead of just saying like the sale ends on Monday, you would have actually a clock ticking in that email of like, oh, you have 3 hours and 20 minutes left before the sale ends and that kind of thing. So
We have this in Brazil.
yeah.
A lot of this.
Yeah, so I think that's been a big change. I think like 10 years ago in marketing, the personalization was more like the companies were initiating it because they thought it was good for sales and everything. But today it's like now it's become so common that the customers just expect it and are kind of like annoyed if they don't see the personalization.
Perfeito. Tell me a bit, de novo. Tell me a bit about of your lifestyle, traveling around the world, and how it's going on so far for you.
Yeah, so I've had the joy of traveling for the last 3.5 years. So I've been to all of the major continents, and yeah, I've been doing a lot of hiking and exploring cities and meeting lots of local people. And I think, and I'm a solo traveler, and I think being a solo traveler, a couple of the most important things I've done have been staying at hostels. So I think a lot of people who haven't stayed at a hostel before think it's like very intimidating to like share a room with other people, won't be able to sleep very well or feel awkward. But that's really like such a great way to meet other travelers. Otherwise, if you're just staying in a hotel, you might feel kind of lonely as a solo traveler and not interact with people very often. But hostels, like they attract people who are very social, and then just the physical environment of how it's set up makes it very easy to talk to people. And the other one I do is couch surfing. So couch surfing is an app where you can stay with local people for free. You just buy them a gift or buy them dinner or something. So that's a really amazing way to get to know a city through a local's perspective. So you're seeing what a typical home or neighborhood is like. That person can help you like find like the local dish that's most popular, or like take you to secret spots in the city most tourists don't go to. So yeah, I think those have been two of the things that have really made my travel a lot more interesting and fun, and just makes it so that as a solo traveler I never feel lonely. I'm always around people all the time, and if anything, I'm like seeking out moments where I can have a night to just like watch a few series by myself or something. It's not like the opposite of like I'm always feeling like, oh, I wish I was meeting more people, or I wish I had friends with me. It's worked out very well, I would say.
Cute. What are your favorite places so far? And can you tell the best experience you ever had traveling around the world?
Yeah, so I would say probably my favorite country has been Vietnam. So Vietnam, yeah, it's just Southeast Asia in general is an amazing place for a solo traveler because there's so many travelers from all over the world going around there, and the culture is really interesting.
Every digital nomad talks about this.
Yeah,
like Bali, Indonesia, Thailand.
Exactly. But for me, Vietnam was like the standout country of Southeast Asia. It was just really, really friendly local.
Not an obvious choice, right?
No, yeah. But I think if you talk to a lot of travelers who've been to a lot of places, most of them would say Vietnam is one of the best. So yeah, Vietnam definitely. And specifically doing the Ha Giang Loop in Vietnam. This is a 3-day motorbike tour where you have a local driving you on a motorbike. And like some of the most amazing nature I've ever seen. You go through mountains and you pass like lakes and rivers, and you're with a group of like 10 or 20 other travelers. So it's a really fun environment and just really beautiful. So that's been a big experience I would say should be on people's bucket lists. And then another amazing country has been Bolivia. So I think Bolivia was by far my favorite country in South America so far. I just really thought the culture was super interesting. Like a lot of people still wear a traditional dress, and the food is quite distinct from the rest of South America. And the nature is just very dramatic. You have like mountains like Switzerland, you have like deserts like the Sahara, you have like rock formations like you might find in like Arizona or Utah in the US, just all of this in a pretty small area. So it's quite amazing to travel there.
And what are your thoughts about Brazil? How it's been so far?
Yeah, Brazil has been, I think it's a challenge because it's so large. I think a lot of people underestimate how huge Brazil is, but I think I read recently it's bigger than the continental U.S. So if you take out Alaska and Hawaii, Brazil is bigger than the U.S. So yeah, I think a big challenge for me as a backpacker is the having to fly everywhere because, I personally don't like to take like 30-hour bus rides. So instead I'll opt for a flight. So I end up spending more money in Brazil than I do in other countries because I'm flying a lot more often. And then Yeah, I think another thing is that that's just quite unique from any other country I've been to is that most of the travelers here are Brazilian travelers. So if I'm traveling in Vietnam, like I don't meet so many Vietnamese travelers, or if I'm traveling in like West Africa, typically, every traveler at a tourist destination is from a different country. But here, if I go to like, Fernando de Noronha or to Chapada Diamantina or somewhere, like everybody there is a Brazilian traveler from different parts of Brazil. So it's interesting. It's very nice because then you can feel more immersed into the culture and like you're actually meeting, tons of Brazilian people every day. But it is, of course, a challenge because I don't speak Portuguese. So it's harder to find people to speak English with. And yeah, sometimes it can feel kind of isolating if like everybody else only speaks Portuguese and, all of that. So yeah, so it's comes with a lot of pros and cons, definitely.
And how have you been received in these places? When people realize that you are American, is there any resistance in any places? You talk about Vietnam. Vietnam has a lot of background history with USA. How you have been received like USA citizen?
Yeah, it's interesting. But I think some of the places you would expect people to be very hostile toward Americans, they're actually like quite the opposite, like very welcoming and like very excited about Americans. So for Vietnam, what's interesting about Vietnam is that of every country I've been to, this is the country where people are most eager to learn English. So if you go to like Hanoi, the capital city, if you go to like the central part of the city where a lot of tourists are, you'll see local people who are walking around with little pieces of paper with like English phrases, and they'll walk up to somebody who looks like a foreigner and say, "Can I practice English with you?" So I think the English language is a big thing of why people are like really excited to meet Americans. And I think also, it's just like time has passed, the younger generation is far removed from that. I think a lot of people, like their parents and grandparents, don't like to talk about the hard times. So maybe they're not even aware of like, how horrible it was, or at least their family's personal role in this. And another example is from Saudi Arabia. So I went to Saudi Arabia. And definitely if you ask the average American, they would say like Saudi Arabians like hate Americans. They think the US is evil, all of that. But it's completely the opposite. Like Saudis are like obsessed with American culture. They watch, American shows and movies. I've never been to a place with so many American fast food restaurants. Like it's not just McDonald's. They have like every American fast food.
KFC,
Of course.
Taco
Yeah.
Bell.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that they all drive these like giant American SUVs, which I've never seen in any other country. Like typically like the US, we're known for having like huge cars. And Saudi Arabia is the only country where like they're as large as the US. And they're all the American brands too, like Ford and Chevy and all of that. So it's quite funny because you're in this place that, culturally could not be more different from the US, but then there's also so many elements of American culture there. And I think because not many Americans travel there, people were like very excited to meet an American. Like it was never at all like hostility or like, any sort of negativity toward me being an American. It was very like, wow, like so cool that you're here. Like people really want to talk to me. So it's quite a nice experience.
What are your plans after Brazil? What's your next destination?
So I'm actually heading to the Balkan countries in Eastern Europe. So this would be like,
Croatia.
yeah, Croatia, Albania, and then I think there's 7 total countries I'm going to go to in that area. So that'll be quite different from Brazil in that they're very small. So I can like, travel from one end of a country to another in 2 hours. So it'll be less flying and shorter bus rides. And yeah, it seems like a really culturally interesting part of the world. Like it's technically in Europe, but I think culturally like completely different from Western Europe. So I'm quite excited to be there.
Okay, the last question, okay? I will prepare here. Beleza, vamos lá, Karine? É. Então é isso, pessoal. A gente conheceu agora o Austin, que ele está viajando o mundo inteiro e pesquisando um pouco como os países fazem marketing. So, Austin, to conclude, are you researching how marketing works in some countries? Tell me what you have learned so far. These insights are going to a book or something similar?
I'm not sure yet. I think it's partly just for myself to improve as a marketer. Like I'm, traveling to different countries. So that means, getting such diverse perspectives on what I do has been really valuable. So, obviously somebody working in like Armenia doing marketing or working in like Fiji doing marketing is dealing with quite a different environment than somebody in the US. So it's a lot of it is just for me to make myself a better marketer. No plans to write a book or anything like that. And yeah, I think it's also just out of curiosity. Like I'm just, imagining, like, let's say I was Brazilian and I was doing my job in Brazil, what would that be like? Just to see, like, what does an office look like in Brazil? Things like that. It's quite interesting for me.
Feito. One last question, okay?
Okay.
We are hurry up in your time. And what are the most interesting curiosities that you found in this research?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that for me as an email marketer has surprised me is how many countries don't have email marketing, or have
Like Brazil.
yeah. But Brazil even has a little bit, but some countries you talk to people and they say like it doesn't exist in our country. Like one example is Myanmar. So Myanmar is a country in Asia that until about 2015 was quite cut off from the world, like similar to like North Korea or one of those countries. So once they started opening up to the world more, they never adopted email. So to this day, like people don't really use email. Like maybe in their office if they work in a really professional office or something, but the average person doesn't have an email account. And they actually use Facebook for everything there. So if they have like a question about something, instead of using Google, they'll go to Facebook search and type their question. Or if they want to message somebody, they won't use WhatsApp, they won't use texting, they'll go to Facebook Messenger to message someone. So I thought that was very interesting. Another thing that I remember quite distinctly from Armenia actually was in Armenia, they have quite a corrupt government, unfortunately. And what that means is that they don't have any laws protecting consumers for things that we would take for granted in other countries. So if you're in Armenia and you are with an Armenian person, you might see their phone buzzing like all the time. And what's happening is they're receiving spam texts like all the time from companies because basically the phone company is allowed to give their phone number to whoever they want. So basically, you have to, there's only a couple of phone companies in Armenia. You have to choose one of them, and then you have no option to opt out of this. So you're just like receiving these spam texts all the time, trying to sell you products or different things you have no interest in, not personalized at all. So yeah, that was something that made me very happy to not be an Armenian in that moment.
I thought the Brazilian was wild in this point, but Armenia is worst.
Yeah.
Some other points interested in your research?
Yeah, I think it has been interesting to learn about how the culture is incorporated in different countries. Like we were talking today, how in Brazil the emails are very colorful and bright and everything. And then like in Scandinavia, they're a more quiet culture, I would say, in a lot of those countries, like definitely not like loud and bold like Brazil. So you can even see that in the email design. The emails are like more muted colors, like very, very rectangular. Like I think Scandinavian design is quite popular nowadays, so people are aware of this. But it's been kind of cool to see how you can really see the culture even in like an email or in a website.
Perfeito. Pessoal, a gente agradece a todo mundo que ficou aí. Esse foi o Austin, especialista em marketing de e-mails, meu amigo. Ele está viajando o mundo inteiro pesquisando. So, Austin, thank you very much to be here in our podcast. And you have just a last message to everybody that's watching?
Yeah, start doing email marketing. It will make you lots of profit and cost you very little.
Perfeito, fica aí a visão aí, e-mail marketing. Someone has said to me that the future of digital marketing, the next trend is newsletter. I thought, oh, no, this newsletter is an old thing, right? It's the new one, or the hot one. Ok. Galera, muito obrigado. Então, esse foi o Austin. A gente vai deixar as redes sociais dele, os links aqui, para você precisar trocar uma ideia. Ele está sempre aberto a conversar, a conhecer mais das culturas. E é isso. Sejam bem-vindos ao NyxCast e até o próximo episódio. Foi? Ok.